February 13 regular session.
All right, thank you, Jake. Ready?
You bet.
All right. Let's call this meeting of the Marion County Board of Supervisors to order. Roll call. Jake.
Keisha Johnner.
Here.
Mark Ramey.
Here.
Steve McCombs. Here.
Would entertain a motion on this morning's agenda.
Make motion to approve today's agenda.
Second. McCombs.
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
All right. Communications. Jake, anything?
Not for me.
All right, board?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And regarding the press release from Public Health on February 8th, 2024. In regards to the press release in the second paragraph, third sentence, it states members of the Board of Supervisors. For clarification purpose, there was no quorum at such group from the Board of Supervisors. That's all I have.
Yeah, and we edited that we took out the S's. So thank you. Steve?
No,
I didn't see it online, so that's why I wanted to make sure
I
it was
understand that,
clarified.
Keisha. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Keisha's statement. And also I've received many communications. I can see the members of EMS here regarding how that's going. So I guess we'll discuss that
We will.
maybe.
We will. Anything else? All right, very good. Thank you. Public comments. It's a portion of our agenda, the public can speak on items that are not on today's agenda. The board cannot take action on those items in terms of voting, but they could be topics of future board meetings. So are there any public comments on items not listed on today's agenda? Jason? Oh, okay. Any public comments? Emily? Okay. All right, we'll move on. Would entertain a motion on today's consent agenda.
Make a motion, we approve today's consent agenda.
A second.
And then Jake, before we go to a vote, I just thought we had our first raise, I think in the consent agenda, Naomi, as a board during the budget process, we talked about the salaries that were below $40,000. And Naomi, I just thought maybe if just give us just a brief description. I thought you did a wonderful job explaining why you were raising that. And since it was a budget discussion, I thought that'd be a good thing just to keep our eye on as a board.
Yeah, so for one of my employees, I am moving her up to our ESS team. So on her payroll raise slip, I explained why I was promoting her. So our ESS team is our electronic service system. It's the system that it's the online platform where you can record filings with our office. It's a statewide system for all recorders. But it does take a great deal of training, understanding of the recording process, what the Iowa formatting standards are. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it is very important to our everyday functions. We do about 62% of our filings are filed online. So we do need to increase our ESS team. So I just thought I would explain that in her slip, so you have an
Right.
idea of what is involved in it.
Right. So board, since we did make this was kind of an issue during our budget discussion. So I just wanted to make sure if you had any questions. So there's an increase in responsibility,
Yep.
a new skill
Correct.
set.
Correct.
And so that's one of the justifications as we look at these salaries. So any questions for Naomi on that?
No, I think we discussed this and during the budget session, I pretty much understood it then.
Great.
Okay, good. Naomi, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi.
Good. So we have a motion and support for the consent agenda. Jake?
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Okay, very good. On to business, we have Knoxville Rotary plaques for the Marion County Courier. T, welcome.
I actually forgot to bring I didn't forget. I thought my purse was so heavy, it was in my purse, but it's not. So the plaques are designed by the industrial high school, Sean Sager's group, and we would like to have them on the gazebo that goes in place of having them in the ground where the people who mow would have to go around them, and that's always a problem. So in talking with Sean, he suggested having them and then putting them on the gazebo. You can see it's a sycamore leaf, and we would like to, we've already put 4 trees on the grounds, and we would like to have them dedicated to the people you see there, both Howard and Phyllis Aliff, the Keith, I can't even remember his name. He was a former governor of, from Knoxville, and he was a governor of,
Keith Hawk.
yeah, Keith Hawk, thank you. And George Andrew, and then there's one more, Jane Conway. We have 2 more trees that are actually up at the high school right now, and we would also like to put those leaves on the gazebo. They're made out of aluminum. That's a hard word for me to say. Aluminum, and some will be brass and some will be a mixture. So there'll be different colors. And it's about that size. So we're just asking permission if we can do that. The gazebo was built through Rotary money. Tyler Christian, when he was part of Rotary, had a group restain it. And so we've been, kind of maintaining it as we needed to have it done. So that's what we're asking for.
Okay, very good, T. Thank you, board.
T, I mean, obviously in regards to the number of leaves, are we looking at, are you going to want to add multiple each year? Are you?
It's unknown. It depends upon if there's places to put trees. I don't think, in all the 85 years we've done it, this is the first time. We did those trees back in 2020, 2021.
Okay.
The Eagle Scout, Caleb Reed, had asked us if we would help with his trees. He planted 4, and I asked if we could dedicate 2 of them to somebody that Rotary would like to. So it doesn't happen very often.
Okay. And that helps. Just make.
Yeah,
for
it
sure,
doesn't look
for
like
clarity.
it's going to be,
Very busy.
overtaking.
Yes. Okay. I have no
Rotary.
further questions.
Right, Steve?
No, I was kind of wondering the same thing. Obviously, we wouldn't want to cover the whole gazebo, and
Oh, glory be no.
we have to be a little selective on the ones we put out there, but I have no problem with it.
Okay,
Okay, very good. Is there a motion?
Make motion to approve the Knoxville Rotary plaques on the Marion County Courthouse courtyard.
Second.
All right, motion and support. Jake?
okay, that's it.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye, that's it, T.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Next, Knoxville Raceway, VA campus parking. Jason, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I just coming back to last year, we was able to lease the ground, showing there on the map to park cars for the Nationals mainly. Well, it's the only time we used it last year. I'm just requesting to use that again. I met with Mark here a week or 2 ago, and I actually talked that ground that would be east of the laundromat back to where we were at. Sheriff Sandholt actually used that to park all of his reserves and deputies that were coming on for that. So I didn't know if we wanted to, if we were able to use that again, if we wanted to add that on there as part of the lease, because we did use that as an exit also to go out to that road, which made the traffic flow a lot better. So if you'd be willing to add that on there as part of the lease ground, we'd still use it for park the reserves, and it kind of, had them park, we had them park on both sides. It kind of made a road for everybody to go out, so everybody knew where they're at. Seemed to work out pretty good.
So the agreement attached is what we did last
Yeah,
year. And-
I do have one printed off of what I was thinking about. So.
Okay, yeah, so if there are any changes to that, Jason, then we'd have to get Jared to sign off on that.
Yeah.
But this is just to give us an idea of what we did last year and then allow for a kind of a launch point for any discussion or questions.
Is all that property the county, Jason, or some of that cities? I can't,
Of the what I've got marked off there, that's
Yeah.
all county.
just the light blue or?
Yep.
Okay.
Cause the other parts of
Yeah.
the city, soccer
Yeah.
field and stuff. Yeah, what we was doing was just the light blue,
Okay.
what we did last year. But then, like I said, we did, the sheriff came to me right there for the Nationals and asked about parking cars over there, his deputies over there. So then when I brought it up, I said, do we need to add that part of the lease ground, you know, so that we did end up parking his people over there. And I think it worked out good.
I'm assuming that this agreement, and I didn't really see it in there, would, again, like we talked about last year, would provide some type of security. You
Yeah.
know, while, you know, especially, I'm more concerned about vandalism.
Right, yep.
And,
No, it actually worked out really good last year. We had one local baseball team group that took care of all the parking and it had, you know, so yeah, it worked out really good.
But somebody will be on site while everybody is parked there,
Yep.
so, okay.
Jason, just for clarity purposes,
Mhm.
in the orange, the purchase from Marion County, you have not purchased that?
No.
Okay, just making sure the
Yeah, that
public is
was what
aware.
we discussed, you know, when we were, when we were talking about putting a railroad crossing in, but
Right.
actually going down to the sidewalk to that gate worked out really good. And so
Okay.
I think we want to just leave it that way at this time.
Have you had discussions with the railroad?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Good, actually. I was kind of surprised, but, I mean, that was one gentleman that I talked to that, you know, he didn't think it'd be an issue as long as you made it a private crossing to where when we're not using it, it's got
Yeah.
sliding gates that
He probably
close.
won't be the next guy you talk to, though.
What's
He
that?
probably won't be the next.
No, he's
guy.
probably long gone and won't ever answer his phone again, but, so, yeah. So no, at that time, we're not pursuing anything up there right now.
Okay, yeah, I don't have any issues. I mean, I understand the parking
Yeah, it worked out really
dilemma.
good.
So just probably a motion then to approve that we agreed to use this for parking.
I believe that what was present, or what Jared reviewed and a copy from last year that I think maybe they updated was a license to occupy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that they have updated it to this current year.
Okay, so it is updated.
I believe so.
Okay. Jared, have you seen it?
Yes, I took a look at that yesterday and just updated for 2024 dates. As long as those dates look like what you guys wanted to agree to, then it's fine. It's the form for me.
But as far as, there's no material change really from what we had last year.
I changed one sentence wording, just.
Okay.
That was of little consequence, really.
Okay, all right. Good. Thank you, Jake. So if there's no further questions, is there a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the agreement with the Knoxville Raceway for VA parking.
Okay, I'll second that.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Jason,
Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have resolution 2024-21, and this is the City of Pella local option sales tax agreement. Mr. Nardini, welcome.
Thank you for having me here today. And prior to explaining this item or this request, I'd also like to thank Supervisor Johnner and Supervisor Ramey for meeting with me and assisting us through this process. A little bit of background on the redistribution agreement that we're considering this morning. The City of Pella has actually had an
Hey,
agreement.
Mike,
Yes.
can I clarify for you? Individually, we met with Mike.
Yes,
so-
that is correct. Not as a group and individually.
Yes.
So, but I will stand by my statement. I appreciate your
Yeah, no,
assistance.
I appreciate that,
So,
just for your clarity
and-
purposes and
yeah,
ours, so.
Understand. All right, a little bit of background on the agreement that we're considering this morning. The City of Pella has actually had a redistribution agreement since 2007. Now, originally, when the agreement was approved both by the City of Pella and Marion County, it was intended to address concerns with the statewide, with the state distribution formula on local option sales and services tax. And we're going to touch on that here in just a bit. Now, under our previous agreement, it's important to realize that Marion County was obligated to redistribute 8% of countywide sales tax or local option sales and services tax. That averaged out to about $440,000 per year. That agreement expired on December 31st of last year. Now, when that agreement was negotiated in 2011, the City of Pella generated approximately 54% of local option sales and services tax in Marion County, and the City of Knoxville was roughly about 40%. So roughly 94% of the sales tax for the local option sales and services tax was generated by the cities of Pella and Knoxville. Now, if you recall, we stated that the previous agreement was intended to address concerns with the statewide distribution formula, and that we believe that case is still true today in the case of the City of Pella. Now, based on lost revenues in 2022, the City of Pella generated 64% of local option sales and services taxes in Marion County. Through the state distribution formula, we received 28% of countywide lost revenues. And hence, for the reason why we're proposing an agreement this morning for consideration of the supervisors. Now, here's a broad overview of the agreement. Unlike our previous agreement, which was a 12-year agreement, what we're proposing this morning is a 2-year agreement, would be for calendar years 24 and 25. The financial terms are exactly the same as our previous agreement. That would be the redistribution of 8% of countywide local option sales and services taxes to the city of Pella. The two new terms that we've included in this agreement is under a section in the agreement is we would actually have the funds that would be just redistributed by Marion County. We would carve out $25,000 of those funds, and that's intended to meet the Marion County's county match for our enhanced Iowa grant application for the proposed indoor recreation center in Pella. That grant application was for $1 million. In order to qualify for the grant, and the last item that we have to submit to the enhanced Iowa team for their consideration is we are required to have a contribution from Marion County for the project. So what we've listed this in is in the terms of our local option sales and services agreement. It does not increase Marion County's financial responsibilities to redistribute revenue to the city of Pella. It's just taking $25,000 of an anticipated redistribution amount and designated it towards our local match for the enhanced Iowa. Now, another key section under this agreement is where there's also a section in this agreement that allows the parties to terminate the agreement if the state of Iowa were to pass legislation which materially changes the distribution of lost funds as well. Now, just in summary, let's go ahead, please. We'd like to thank the Marion County supervisors for our previous agreements, redistribution agreements. We realize that Marion County is one of the few county governments in the state of Iowa, maybe the only county government in the state of Iowa that has a redistribution agreement. We're extremely appreciative of that. We'd like to thank the board for that. And we also look forward to working with Marion County in the future as well. So with that, Chairman Ramey, that concludes our presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions the supervisors may have on the proposed agreement.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Steve, Keisha, any questions for Mike on the agreement proposal?
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, Mike, I'm curious as to why you wouldn't want a 5-year agreement, a guaranteed 5-year income as opposed to 2, because in the future, the makeup of this board may change, and maybe the future boards may decide they don't want to share, like we have. I'm sure everybody knows that we're the only county in the state of Iowa that does that. I'm just curious. I mean, why would you not want a guaranteed 5-year?
Yeah. Well, Supervisor McCombs, that's an excellent question. And the Pella City Council spent a considerable amount of time on this item. There were members of the city council that were in favor of a 5-year agreement. The majority of the Pella City Council was in favor of a shorter agreement. And what we took, and there, if you recall, the city's initial proposal was we had a little higher redistribution amounts on it than what Marion County had in through meetings, individual meetings that we had with the supervisors. Where we ultimately landed on is we tried to find the common, what both parties seemed to agree on, and both parties seemed to agree on. For the initial 2 years would be at the 8%. That's what we're considering this morning. The Pella City Council also asked in consideration of future agreements that staff perform additional, I'd say, economic analysis on the tax itself. And so they wanted to see that before proposing any additional agreements to the supervisors.
Well, here's where I'm at, Mike. I mean, in the position that I'm in, I'm only speaking for me, I have to look out for the well-being of Marion County as a whole, and that includes citizens elsewhere other than the cities of Knoxville or Pella. And that's why I've struggled with this whole thing all through this process. I was trying to do what I thought was right for all the citizens. Obviously, we've talked about this in the past, that it's not only the citizens of Pella that spend their money in Pella, it's the outlying citizens also. And that's why I struggle with it all, Mike. And, I'm glad we're coming to some type of agreement. But I just,
Yeah, no,
and believe me, I appreciate everything that Pella is trying to accomplish, and Knoxville. That we have to balance, I have to balance all that to what's the best for all citizens.
yeah. Steve, thank you. And just to bring the board's attention, we did get a comment from Rhonda Burlow up on the screen, just to make sure you see that.
All right.
Or Burhow, I'm sorry, Burhow. Yep.
Um,
So anyway, thanks. Steve, anything else?
Well, the $25,000, I mean, why does it have to be part of the agreement? I mean, that's your money to do with it as you feel
Yeah.
fit, but
Yeah.
Well, I think it's got to be because they have to have some type of county support.
right.
So you take a portion of our contribution and
Yeah.
then they can apply for the grant as a
That-
result.
Yeah, that is correct, Supervisor Ramey. The Enhanced Iowa needs a contribution or from the Board of Supervisors on the matter.
Okay,
And what was asked to staff, if we would consider just the amount that's being redistributed, if we could use a portion of those funds. The
so what
city
I-
of Pella is agreeable to that.
so what I'm understanding is rather than ask us for another $25,000, just, okay.
That's what we're trying to do.
I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you.
Right.
And Mike, when we met, just to recap a little bit, I met with city manager of Knoxville, to Heather Eshery, and Mike at the same time. And all along, I've been for 5 years at the same rate. And a lot of different things were discussed that day. It was mentioned 1 year, it was mentioned possibly talking to council about getting, City of Pella talking to their council about getting rid of lost. It was all over the place. And also you brought up a 2-year. The end of the day, yeah, I would prefer to have 5 years
Mhm.
at 8%. But I guess if you're wanting 2 years, I mean, there's no guarantee what the future holds. We know that. As Steve had said, that 2 years at 8%, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and Mike, you and I have talked at length. I'm for shorter terms. I think economic volatility is here to stay. And I think we have to revisit these more frequently. We are unique in terms of the type of arrangement we have with our municipalities. I think it keeps it fresh in everybody's mind. Where are the cities at financially? Where are our other communities at? And where are we at? And it allows I think, a more vibrant discussion when we're dealing with this kind of volatility. So I'm totally in favor
Yeah,
of this structure.
it's a real struggle because last week we had to deny a request to our road department
Mhm.
because we didn't quite fiscally see how we could manage that.
Right, right.
So it's a tough deal.
It's a balancing act, yeah,
Yeah.
very much so.
So Mike, thank you. Board, if there are no other questions, would entertain a motion on this agreement proposal.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-21.
I'll second.
Ramey,
Aye?
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Very good. Mike, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Next, Marion County Development and a request to post an assistant director position. Carla?
Yes, as we've talked over the last 2 years in our budget cycle process, we are at the point that, based on a lot of our discussions, we would like to hire an assistant director to train a person. As you know, I'm a one-person department, and me looking towards retirement in early 2025. This would allow us to bring a person in, be able to go through one whole cycle of programs and projects. Not only that, we have an added need this time because of the loss of Synchronous. We're having to add in a new client management system for our existing industry. So all that data has to be re-entered. All that has to be made new in a new computer system. So that's part of what this position will do, as well as help us with some new marketing initiatives that are coming out of our strategic planning process, as well as the implementation of what will come out this spring from our housing study. So there's a lot of things coming out that over the next 12 months, this position will allow us to be able to do that, as well as hopefully have a strong transition. We have made it very clear, it does not assume that this position would move into my position when I retire, but it would certainly provide that individual with an opportunity to have a good understanding of the office and to apply for that position once it's posted, once I announce formally my retirement.
Okay, very good. Board, any questions for Carla?
No, I have none. We discussed this during the budget season and we've also, we met that challenge with the zoning department. So I'm totally on board with this stuff. Carla, I understand why we needed succession.
Carla, is there a range? And did we speak about that in the budget? correct? Or
Yes,
was
so
that-
what I put in the job description right now is 60 to 70. what is, if you look in the budget, you can
Right.
pencil out what's actually in there. It's right around that range, but that gives us some flexibility. But we feel we're going to need that in order to attract somebody with the types of varied talents and skills that we will need for this position.
Mhm.
It still is drastically under what these types of positions make in other places.
No, very good. And Carla and I'm
Thank you for that
supportive and,
clarity.
oh.
Nope, I just appreciate her
Yeah.
clarifying that. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and had a chance to attend for a while, your strategic planning session, which I thought was excellent. I
Mhm.
thought the comments were excellent at the end and during the course of that. So I think this position is
Yeah, we
important.
really appreciate our citizens being involved in that process, our industry, our citizens being involved in that process,
Yeah.
as well as our housing study as well.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Board? And if no further questions, is there a motion to post this position?
Make motion to approve posting the position for Marion County Development.
Second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye, very good. Thank you. Next, discussion action item potentially, really on the Knoxville Memorial Hall building. So I brought this forward. We've had discussions over the years on what should we do with county properties, particularly the memorial halls. And over the years, we've given memorial halls away. We've disposed of property. We tore down the Bussey one because it was in just a state of disrepair. So we're left with one, and that's the Knoxville Memorial Hall. Well, no county offices are there. It's used, I think, by some other groups, and there's a commission that oversees the maintenance and care, and there's a budget for that building. But I guess the question is that a building we want to maintain on our rolls? And one of the things I want to point out to the board is, and we'll talk about this in my update, and it will be in our first meeting in March, is I just got our property casualty renewal. And we're going to receive a 30% increase. Jake and I were looking at that. We're going to get some further data on what's driving that increase, but insurance rates are going up dramatically. I'm sure you've all experienced that in your auto and your property insurance rates. So if we don't have to maintain this building, keep it on our roll, but can actually sell the building, find somebody who wants to buy it, I think that would be a better utilization of the property overall. So we had one issue that we had researched over the years, and that was from a statutory standpoint, do we have to hang on to it?
All right, that's what was one of my questions. Are we legislatively required to maintain
Right.
a memorial hall?
So I don't know, Jared, have we refreshed that? Have we looked at that? I know we've talked about it over several meetings.
Yes, and this is something that obviously, like you said, has come up several times over the years, I know. But we have looked at this and there have been disagreements about this in the past because it's not entirely clear, but our position is, after looking at this, that we're not required to have one. If we do have one, then we have to maintain it. And there's certain provisions in the code that are requirements if we do choose to have one.
Okay, very good.
I think over the years, they've lost their purpose of what they were established for.
Yeah, that's kind of been our view of with the others as well, that it's better for the cities to have them, utilize them for whatever those cities want to use those properties for, and integrate them more into the community. So, board, it's really just a discussion. If Jared, from a legal perspective, says we really don't have a legal obligation, then it's a question of, do we want to keep it on our rolls, or would we like to sell or dispose of the property to another party?
So, yeah, I have a few comments. You know, I did ask about and requiring, insurance. Roughly right now, our property insurance is $2,300. So the 30% increase would put it at $3,000 a year. We did just put a roof on it with the commission, and we split the cost there. The Memorial Hall Commission, I believe, is that what you call yourselves, Dick? Okay. So, which is an investment. I guess I kind of need to know, my understanding is the building is being used.
Yeah, Dick, go ahead. Go ahead.
A little slow, it just happened.
That's all right. That's all right.
The building's being used more than it ever has been. People are renting it for pickleball. And starting next month, they take the young children and take them in there to try to show them how to play baseball. We have soccer kids. You know, I always said through the winter, we don't get enough off rent to take care of it, but still. And, you know, it's just to honor veterans. That's what I think more than anything, but I'm also a veteran, so I think different than a lot of people do.
So Dick, the commission pays the utilities, correct?
And we, I guess the county used to give them so much a year, but
Right.
we haven't got that for quite a while,
Right.
and that's fine,
Right.
you know, that's fine. But,
Because
you
you
know,
do
like I said, the
receive,
community uses it more than they ever have.
so when it's rented out, you do receive that income to pay the
Yeah,
utilities,
to help
correct?
with the
Okay.
utilities and stuff, yeah.
And then, in regarding, I know the church uses it, United Methodist Church uses it.
Mhm.
And then I don't even know if the city is, where their thoughts are, I guess, in regarding, there's a lot of things up in the air.
Yeah, and it's really just an opportunity to have the discussion. There's no,
Sure.
I mean, we appreciate, Dick, what you guys do. I think as we look at the properties around that the county has had ownership of, if we have to contribute taxpayer dollars to maintain it, is that the right use of those dollars? And it really is kind of that simple. And has the purpose of the building really changed over time to where it would be better to have it in a private interest, and someone else owning it, maintaining it, putting a business in it, whatever those
And I had,
possibilities would be.
You know, the bad thing is Knoxville's losing a lot of gym space. And, you know, we have,
That's a good point. Yeah.
people that use it and bring their kids up there. The kids, we don't charge anything for the kid. The adults,
Okay.
they pay, so. And I think that, the pickleball people, it's about like $5 an hour each for them to do, so we're not, you know,
And-
charging.
And Jake, from now the property portion, of course, but is this on our liability policy as well?
So, under liability, it would be under the all umbrella of our liability, just like any other property or, excuse me, or, anything like that from a liability standpoint. And the building is individually scheduled for, property insurance. So, yeah, it's covered under our liability from whatever would be, and I don't know those exact details. Something get named from that. So, yes, it's under liability as the umbrella and individually scheduled as a building.
Okay. All right.
But the daily maintenance goes to Dick and his commission.
Okay. Very good. Steve?
So let me understand what I just heard. So the usage that takes place in this building, if somebody was to get injured, that's our liability umbrella?
I'm
And they-
assuming that Dick would have that, but most generally, whoever owns the property would probably be named as well.
Okay. If I remember right, didn't we offer this once to the city and they didn't want it? Or
I think we did. It's been quite a few years ago.
Yeah,
Because there for a while, they leased it for $1, I think, a year.
Oh.
Because the rec center wasn't
Yeah.
built
Right.
yet. And
Okay.
once they got it done, I think they
Yeah.
didn't want to use it anymore.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, if not looking for anything real decisive here today, just a chance to bring it up, give you a chance to think about it. If there is a desire to move forward and maybe market the building, we of course would want to coordinate with the commission and talk about its
Sure.
current utilization. Dick, I think that's a great point about gym space and those types of things. We certainly want to take that into account.
Well, what if we, I don't know how we can do this. I know I'm just thinking outside the box here, but if we decided to divest ourselves of the property, if we was to offer it to the commission for a minimal fee or something like that,
I think those are all kinds of options that are available. The question would be then for the commission, if Steve is saying, could we offer it to the commission? And then essentially the commission would take some type of ownership in the building. And then Dick, from your commission standpoint, it would be, well, could you afford to do that?
Right.
And-
What I'll do is the American Legion, it has their meetings there. I will talk with them and then I'll get back with whoever.
Yeah,
You know,
and see.
I wouldn't be looking at making a huge profit, but something just to help everybody
yeah.
and divest our residents of that liability.
Right. And then Jared, from a legal standpoint, and probably with Jake, what would we have to do? What's the process to be
Okay.
able to do that? If, whatever it would be, whether it would be a sale or whether it would be something like this, which would have a little different flavor than a sale, we would just have to know what I's we have to dot from a process standpoint.
Absolutely, we
Yeah.
can look into that.
I think it's a very good building for the community. I mean,
I
we
do
have
too.
people that'll have birthday parties up there and, but
I think it's important that, we want growth within the county. And I know that with limited gym space, it is important that, you have kids that can be in activities.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's something that we're gonna have to process.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know that I'm firm on just, getting
Alright.
rid of the building at this point, but something we can continue to discuss, but it's
okay,
gonna have to work
thank you.
in the right way, so.
Well, Dick, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for the discussion. If there's no further action, I would entertain a motion to close discussion.
Make motion to close discussion.
Second,
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey,
Aye,
Johnner.
Aye.
very good. Special event application for Knoxville Farmers Market. Is there anybody here for that?
Danae Marsh is the individual that called and has turned in the application. She did it last year as well. I don't know that she was going to be on today or not.
Okay,
I just dropped it off last week.
any, you guys had a chance, Chris, had a chance to take a look at it?
Yeah, I took a look at the agreement. It's virtually the same thing, a little bit of expansion on Saturdays, and I have no problems from the facility standpoint.
Okay, all right, good. Board, any thoughts, questions?
No, I don't have a problem with it.
All right, very good. Is there a motion?
Make motion to approve the Marion County Special Ed event application for
Second.
farmers market.
Second,
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
aye.
Next, again, something else brought forward. I asked Lisa to put this together. With some of the changes that we've had within the sheriff's department and the union, our relationship, we've had this relationship with Renee von Brokeren for years to assist us in union negotiations and help us through that process. That's changed a little bit. Now that we haven't really had that issue come up, what now for a year, Sheriff? Is that about right? Couple of years now. We have a law firm that we use with the HR department that has the capacity to advise us on those issues. So I wanted to bring this forward to the board and say, what would you like to do in terms of continuing to pay the retainer that we pay to Renee? But we're also with our HR law firm, we have that same capacity that we pay on an hourly basis. And do you want to make a change? Do we want to continue on with the relationship? It's about 6,000 a year. Is that right on a retainer basis?
6,050.
Yeah, so,
I see no need continuing the service if we have another option, if it were to arise.
It was kind of redundant if we have the other option. So I'm in favor.
so, yeah, so we
Excuse me.
would, I think contractually, we would pay this would be our last retainer installment. And then
Noted by her.
as of the fiscal year, we would end that relationship.
It's
Okay,
fine.
Perfect.
all right. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that upon our final retainer payment, then we would end the negotiation with the bargaining unit services with Van Broker and Associates.
Second,
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye, very good. Thank you. Updates. Steve?
Oh, I have a landfill meeting tomorrow, DCAP meeting Thursday. Busy week.
Keisha?
I don't have any updates. at this
All
time.
right, very good. So I got a few here. First, had a discussion with our lobbyist, Kelly, on different legislative proposals. One of the things that's being worked on relative to our budget discussions is there are some comp board bills being put forward. So I just want to make sure you're all aware of that. I offered some ideas for her to think about as she tracks that legislation. We had a VA development group meeting yesterday. I thought it went extremely well. There's some exciting things going on, and Heather and the folks from Knoxville will have them on the agenda. Did we say end of the month? Yeah, so the next meeting, they'll be here to talk about some of those opportunities. One of the things to be thinking about is the officers' quarter, what was the officers' quarters? We call that Block A, Heather. That'll be a topic of discussion, and what we might want to do with that, just like we did with where the housing is being developed, because there is an opportunity there. But I'll let Heather and the folks from Knoxville present that at the end of the month meeting. So I thought that went very, very well. EMS. A lot of people here are interested in that. So I wanted to just give an update on that. First, apologies for the press release. That was my editing problem. I missed that. So that group that was referenced in the press release is a separate group from the EMS Essential Group that was formed by this board. The purpose of the EMS Essential Group was to come back to the Board of Supervisors really with two things. Number one, why should we declare this to be essential, the EMS services, because we haven't done that yet. And number two, if you need revenue, i.e. a new tax, how much and why? Because we have to craft ballot language to put on a ballot, and we have to approve that. The Board of Supervisors has to approve that ballot language and then put that forward for a vote of the county. That has not happened yet. So that group is kind of stalled out, that technical term. In other words, there's no proposal yet that's come to the board. Not that that group couldn't reform and come up with a proposal. That could happen. The other group that everybody is concerned about is me putting together some people to further the conversation about how will we fund this? Because that was the biggest sticking point in the entire discussion, was funding. And I realize everybody wants to talk about the service versus the money. But if we're going to ask the taxpayers to pay more money, we have to think about the funding piece. So knowing that Knoxville and Pella are the two major services and have significant losses relative to those services, I thought it would be at least a good idea to get with some different folks who handle the dollars and are associated with the policy applications of this to see, is there another approach? And that other approach really comes down to the funding and structure of that funding that might help the other group have a different idea. So that's really the whole point of that other meeting, is there's a funding issue. We know that. And I want to continue to pursue that, and I can. I'm an independent board member. I can meet with whoever I want to meet with and talk to whomever I want to talk to. The First Amendment guarantees me that right. And as an elected official, I have an obligation to make sure that when we ask the voters to pay taxes and raise their taxes, that we're doing it for all the right reasons and that we have a good structure in place. So that's the point of the second group. We talked about it during our budget meeting. Lindsay came up and gave a good outline of that. And the press release was just to keep everybody in the loop that we met, because we're trying to be transparent and say, we're having these discussions, but it doesn't cancel out the other group. The other group could still come back together, meet, and come up with a proposal. I don't chair that group. That's not my meeting. I'm just there more as a voting member. So that's the broad update of what the second group that's meeting is, just a group that I pulled together and asked to talk to. And I'm going to continue those discussions because I think they're important. We had legislators come to our first discussion, and it was a great meeting. Of the 99 counties that could avail themselves of this law, only 12 have even tried. So if it's such a good piece of legislation, you would think a lot of counties would take advantage of it, but they haven't. Why? Well, it has to do with largely with taxes and the distribution of those taxes and how that's communicated to the taxpayer. So it's not that we don't want to increase funding. I think we have to. I said this in all the EMS essential meetings. There is a funding problem. That's the data shows that clearly. But we've got to think of some creative solutions to provide the other group with a mechanism to say, here's a possibility. Here's a different way to break the logjam. So that's the high level update I have. I don't apologize for meeting because as an elected official, I have every right to do that.
Mark,
Yeah.
I'm curious, of those 12 counties that have done this,
And that's an estimate, Steve. It
Yeah.
could be 10. it could be
is there
12.
some type of common distribution formula for the funds that they raise through taxes?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics about what they've done, Steve.
Yeah, I
know
don't
that-
either.
I know that several of the counties have had serious problems after they passed it. That's what's been reported to us from a variety of
Wonder
sources.
what kind of problems?
Most of them have county hospitals. So we're a little unique in that we don't have a county hospital. We have 2 independent hospitals. So let's look at Mahaska. Mahaska hasn't passed it, but their hospital gets a levy from the county.
Already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't do that. That's not something we do here in Marion County. Our hospitals function independently. But when you think about what their relationship is to EMS, there's a connection somewhere in
So the
that
formula is
process.
going to be rather complicated.
Well, it comes down to if you're going to say I can tax the residents up to 75 cents per thousand, then how are you going to distribute
Yeah.
that money?
I know, that's what I'm saying.
That's what it comes down to. And if Pella says one thing, Knoxville says another, and they can't come to an agreement, then it kind of stops there. And it isn't that you can't have those discussions. And I know Heather and the folks have been talking with the city of Pella, but I'm just taking a different angle and saying, is there another way to look at the funding piece of this so we can say, here's an option, and then move the process forward to get that EMS
So what you're
essential.
proposing is an option. That's what you're
Absolutely.
telling me.
And just like everything else I've ever done, Steve, we'll have spreadsheets, data. We'll come to the board. We'll say, here's what we're thinking about. We've had 2 meetings and they've been broad discussions. Like I said, we had legislators there in the last meeting, and I looked at them and I said, I appreciate the EMS essential law that you passed. I think it's a good first cut. But if it was a silver bullet, you would think every county in Iowa would have jumped at it. And they didn't. Why? Well, they don't know.
That's
Why?
a good question.
Right? So and they listened to what I said about the different options, different possibilities, different ways of thinking about this, because one of the goals that I have after we come back to the board and say, what would you like to, is there a proposal here? Do we actually have a proposal? The answer may be, I don't have one at all. I can't figure it out. The answer may be, I don't know. Okay. But if I don't look into it, I can't come up with any solution.
So to address everybody's concerns, there's really nothing written in stone.
No, there's nothing written in stone at all. When we took on the VA, how did I approach the VA? The same way. I got people together and started to talk about how we could do this, both to acquire it, to fund it, and then to develop it. And then we pulled people together, and then we brought it to the different boards and the different councils to say, do you agree? Is this something you agree with? This is exactly the same thing. And it's a way to help maybe break the log jam a little bit that we've had. We met for a year. I was in every meeting for a year. And we just kept kind of going round and round and round with no firm proposal that that group could vote on. Because that group has to vote. That group is a creature of the Board of Supervisors. That group has to vote. And then that recommendation comes here, and this board has to decide, do we want to raise taxes and put it on a ballot? So there has to be something pretty firm. It has to be something that group agrees with. That hasn't happened yet.
Before I would ever vote on something like that, I would have to know there would have to be some type of agreement on the distribution of the funds.
Yep.
I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I don't know how you get there.
I don't, yeah.
I would just like to add a little bit that I too have met with our representatives. And Representative Kniff McCullough is working on more legislation.
Yes, she is.
So, and I do think that it is important that she does hear us. She does hear you guys. And I think that hopefully maybe something can be changed, but
And
yeah.
Keisha, that's a really good point. Any one of us independently can meet with any one of you and our legislators on this topic. I'm just tackling it because I was put on the EMS Essential Group. I see the need. I see the funding hole. I've looked at the numbers. Something has to be done. We need the best quality ambulance services throughout Marion County to serve our residents. That's a given.
It's so disheartening to me that we can't have a knockdown, drag out argument amongst ourselves without breaking the law. I mean, really. I mean,
Steve is advocating for a bar fight, folks. That's what he's advocating for.
I'm okay with the bar fight, but I just don't want to break the law.
So but my issue is this. I'll just in total transparency, since we're talking about it. The state legislature, in their infinite wisdom, capped our ability to access property tax revenue. They did it to Knoxville, they did it to Pella, they did it to us. And then they passed a law that said, oh, by the way, you can raise taxes. How much sense does that make? It doesn't make any sense to me. And it can't be, and the answer to that question is, well, they passed a law, passed the tax and shut up. I'm not going to do that. Steve's not going to do that. Keisha's not going to do that. We're not just going to pass on the tax to the taxpayer and then just not comment or not have a thought on it.
There's got to be a good reason why.
Absolutely. And so it's not denigrating anybody who does this for a living. We appreciate everybody's service. But at the same time, we have to be able to have conversations about it and not everybody get offended by it. Because everybody's trying to work toward the same goal, which is we've got to provide cash for the system to work. You can't have $1 million loss when you look at your two cities and say, this is a healthy system, because it's not.
Where does the losses come from? I mean, apparently, if my understanding correctly, there's some kind of issue with Medicare or Medicaid as far as payment.
Well, I didn't bring any of the current spreadsheets I have, but when you turn an ambulance on, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, it's a $600 to $700 switch, right? When you turn it on. Go to the store and turn it on. You can do what? Drive to the gas station. Right, I know. So what does it cost when you do that? What we are looking at is the cost. So if it costs $600 to turn it on and make that run, but you only recover 38% of that cost, which is what everybody told us.
Really?
That's definitely accurate.
Okay, well, that's what we were told. That's what everything's based on. So if you're only recovering 38 cents on the dollar, that's a funding problem, right? To be able
It is. I just don't understand why EMS is expected to recover so much of its own money. When we don't ask the sheriff's department to make money every time they go on a call. We don't ask county roads to make money every time they do something. We don't ask when the 3 board of supervisors meet for you to generate revenue from this. You're not charging us admission. Why is the double standard? Why is EMS as a government entity widely expected to generate revenue when nobody else is. I don't see the sheriff throwing pancake breakfast to raise money. Why are we expected to do
I
that?
don't think I've ever asked anybody to
Yeah,
generate
I don't think that's the
revenue.
expectation at all.
You just
But
said
it's
that-
providing a
You
service.
just said the expectation is to generate revenue.
No, I didn't. It's not what I said. I said, I know there's a funding problem.
Right.
However it's been structured in the past, I really don't, that's how I have to deal with reality.
Right.
Okay? The reality is that it's structured according to how it's in your city budgets, because we don't have an EMS
Right.
provider.
If we had to levy a tax, I'd be happy just to break even.
Yeah. Nobody's saying we want to make money.
Why? Why do we even have to break even, I guess would be the, no other city, no other county entity or city entity is expected to break even.
Well, I think if
Um,
you're going to ask the taxpayer to pony up another 65 cents, because the group kind of landed between 60 cents and 65, but nobody could really agree on what that number should be. So if we're going to add 65 cents for everybody in Marion County, and you're going to tell the residents in Pella that already pay for their ambulance service, the residents in Knoxville who already pay for it, you got to pay another 65 cents. What does that mean? We have to be able to tell them why, right?
Means they get a high level of service.
Okay, well, but that's all part of the discussion and the education when you say to a person, you pay more tax. It can't be pay more tax, shut up.
Right. No, and it should,
Nobody should ever expect
but
that.
in the way that you word the ballot language, which I have faith it'll be pretty good if we get to that point.
Well, I'd like to clarify that we don't, no offense, but I don't expect the sheriff office to go over his budget, and I don't expect the road department to go over their budget. Hopefully they come in under
Right,
every year, you
Right.
know?
right. There's no,
But there are extenuating circumstances sometimes,
Yeah.
like this storm we just had. That put a big dent in our budget.
But there's no expectation for those entities to bill the citizen either.
Pardon me?
There's no expectation for those entities to bill the citizen for routine service.
No, that's
But
correct.
there is for us.
That's correct.
And there
You're
is
correct.
this,
Because you're saying you're providing a service.
we are providing a service. As every city or city and
Yeah.
county entity is, just like you guys, everybody's providing a service.
Right.
We just seem to have this this expectation of revenue generation for the service we provide that doesn't.
Well, hope
And
that's
nobody
not
else has
coming
that.
for me, because I don't expect that.
well, and I think that's a fair point because I don't see EMS any different in its current structure than the sheriff's department. Okay, but I can't, from a county standpoint, I can't tell Heather how to structure it within her budget. Well, and I can't tell Pella how to do that. So I have to deal with the reality, the box that I'm in when we go to the taxpayer and say, oh, by the way, you have to pay more in taxes. And why are we doing that? What service will it provide? What does it get us? Okay. And that's, those questions are still kind of hanging out there. It can't just be, it's all about the service because it takes money to drive the service, right?
Right.
And if we're going to pay for, if we're going to raise salaries, which I think was something that came up in all the meetings, we need to pay people who are qualified. Totally reasonable.
It always
we
boils
do-
down to money. Everything boils down to
Yeah.
money.
So anyway, those are totally fair points. All I'm trying to figure out is the funding piece. Not that you have to make more money, but how do we cover that if you're covering 38 cents on the dollar, how do we fix that?
Well, it's not only, I think, in my mind, it wouldn't be only, we're trying to cover the current cost, but what are the future costs going
Yeah.
to be?
Because you want to buy equipment. We might need to have more ambulances. We might need to expand service. We don't know. We don't know those things. So when we build this, it has to plan for contingencies, just like we do with Jason's budget or Tyler's budget or anybody else. It's not just tax now and then we find out. If we taxed at 75 cents, the most we could raise based on all of our math. And again, we could amend this if somebody can prove that it's a different math problem. The most we could raise is 1.4 million a year. So if I look just at the losses, and Heather, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're running about 400,000 deficit on that service, correct? Oh, about 600, okay. And I know Mike's running at about 600, so that's 1.2 million. We raised 1.4 million in new taxes. That's all, we just covered those gaps. That's if we cover them at 100%. Well, what about Melcher? What about Bussey? about Pleasantville. So just a new tax in and of itself doesn't necessarily solve what you just raised. So we have to think about, how do you build in more dollars? How do you build in a bigger pool of dollars that can take care of those issues now and provide for future service? The group that I'm with, the group that I pulled together, that's all we've talked about, is how do you do that? I have no answers. I have no solutions right now. My public health folks that I have with me are there to help me build spreadsheets and collect data. And that's what.
And I think the struggle is leaving out the EMS directors. They would prefer the EMS. What I heard, from them voicing their concern was they don't understand the exclusion. They don't understand why an off group. They don't feel that it was at a stalemate. And then I also, I have all these questions, but then I also want to know, did the state really mean for 357F and 422 to make you whole? Or was it to say, hey, here's a little bit of help, but it's going to cost you something? I don't know that answer.
No, none of us do. And
But I mean, again, I get to his point of it's providing a service. And then I struggle sitting in this seat going, how much are we outstretching ourselves when it's not my expertise? It's none of our expertises. And this is a city issue. This is the electeds and the townships. If they have a concern and they're not being able to provide EMS, they were elected, just as the city leaders were elected. Where are we crossing the line and saying, oh, no, but we know better? Because we don't like the state doing that to us. And I'm struggling with that.
well, and I appreciate those concerns, Keisha, but if that was the case, we shouldn't have formed an EMS committee. Because we did that.
Yes, but we're,
This board sanctioned an EMS group to meet at the request of the EMS representative.
with all of them involved.
Right.
Correct.
And that group met for 1 year, and there's no proposal.
And okay, if
because
they can't do a
because
proposal, they can't, and then nothing comes
and,
back to
and,
the board.
and that's fine. But that doesn't preclude me or you or Steve from saying, I see that there's a problem. Why don't we try to solve the problem? Is it solvable?
Hmm.
And the answer may be no. It may be no. When I did the VA, the answer could have been no.
Of all the
Could have been-
decision,
No, wait a minute, see. The answer could have been no. It could have been no on Prairie Ridge. It could have been no on Pleasantville. It could have been no on any of these major projects. And the fact that I don't have an EMS director on that group right now, so what? I've heard from the EMS directors. I gave Cal a copy of our PowerPoint and said, this is what we're going to try to do. So it's not like people have been kept out of the loop and in the dark. But I need to talk to the people who actually manage the city funds. Heather, Mike, some of the hospital folks, because their voices weren't in that group. Because they're the ones that have to deal with it from a budgetary standpoint, to your point. So why is it that way? And I need to learn that. Kevin Kincaid gave me a great education on hospital accounting, on how those things work. That was never presented in these meetings.
sounds like the group should have been larger to begin with.
It should have been. But I needed to know that. And again, all due respect to all of you and everybody who's commented, but I can do that. I can do it the way that I think is best. And as I have always done, I come back and I tell everybody what I'm doing. And you all can comment on it. You all can say, hey, I don't like it. I think he's being this. Fine. But I'm still going to do what I think is right. And I'm not going to let the crowd tell me otherwise. Because I can see there's a massive financial hole here, and we want to provide the best service we can, not just for now, but for 10 years from now. And trust me, I've looked at the demographics. I know where we're headed. And if we don't have a solution, it only gets harder, right? It gets harder and harder as we go, financially and from a service standpoint. So that's the only thing. And as soon as I get some more answers, I'll pull in more people. But I needed my education on some of the points that I wanted to hear. Because that's what was not getting talked about in those meetings.
You know,
And I wasn't satisfied.
one thing I've learned over the years being on this board was of all of the decisions that we make, And some of them are not easy. Some of them are easy, some of them are very hard. They're predicated on the assumption that they're going to be a success. And that's a guess. You know, hopefully it's going to be a success, you know.
Well, and it's predicated on this. I mean, I agree, Steve, it's predicated on this. At least for me, and you two can speak for yourselves. But I will always bring back the stuff to the board to talk about and vote on and have full disclosure on.
And
And
that goes back to why I wish we could just sit here and argue and yell at each
Yeah.
other without breaking the law.
yeah. And other people might have other viewpoints on it, but, and that's okay. But we got it. It says the purpose of the EMS Essential Group was never to make the services whole or to plug the $1 million hole. The EMS Essential Group was put together to get the county and the township to pay their share of EMS instead of all the cities subsidizing EMS for the county. This was also to help the township departments from having to provide EMS from using their fire tax money. Okay, well, that wasn't talked about, at least that way. So I would disagree. Yeah.
I just wanted to echo Cal's comment and on behalf of the city of Knoxville. The city of Knoxville, this is a service that we've provided for many, many years. We've always been at a deficit. If it was a business that made money, businesses would do it and cities would not provide it. I know there's other entities that have just taken this on and it is something that they are looking at in their budgets, but for Knoxville, it's never been about making us whole. It's about helping the smaller townships. It's about helping support them to ensure that Knoxville isn't running a majority of those calls because they're not able to ensure that the response times are strong for the whole county. As well as City of Knoxville currently subsidizes a lot of that service that is ran out in the county because county residents do not pay for EMS service currently. So that is the part I could think for the City of Knoxville, why we're at the table. Is not for Knoxville to try and get more money, but to ensure that the response times are strong and our townships are supported in the way that they need to be to ensure that we have that across the entire county. I
Yeah.
just think that's important that we're not trying to plug that $600,000 deficit because we've had that deficit for many, many years and it will probably continue, but it's a service that we provide as a city.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Heather, and I agree with that 100%. And just so you know, when I bring up this $1 million hole, I'm not saying we're going to fill it, but we do have to solve for some of it, don't we? Because just like you said, Heather, you're subsidizing a lot of what goes on in the county. So is Pella. So it's not about trying to fill the hole, but we do have to come to an agreement on how those dollars will be collected,
And
what
how
that amount
Comes
is.
back to the
And it does
distribution.
come back to that. So whether it's $1 million or $500,000 or whatever the number is, you're still going to ask the taxpayer to pay more taxes. So that agreement has to be made at bottom line. And that has not happened yet.
I see
So
the big stickers being the distribution of those funds.
exactly, that's exactly what it is. So as soon as that happens, if that group met tomorrow, came up with a distribution agreement and said, hey, we're all in sync, and they vote on it and bring it to the board, now we got something at least to work with to develop ballot language.
I wouldn't have a problem with it if it was a equitable distribution.
Yeah, well, again, that group has to come because it's a creature of the Board of Supervisors and make that proposal. It's really, it's that simple. And have a proposal that they can bring to the board. I said that in every meeting during that EMS essential discussion. Just have a proposal. Agree on what you want. So that's my update.
If I may interject here a little bit, please.
No, because it's not really a public, this is just,
This is not from the newspaper. This is from Mike Roberts, and former firefighter EMS.
yeah, but it's not, this is just my update, Mike. So not, you can do the next public comment period, okay?
I will.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I want to say thank you to the EMS. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your dedication. I'm not an expert in this. I'm never going to claim that I'm an expert in that. So, but I want to say thank you because it is vital. And I'll go back to the day of saying, this is about lives. It's about saving lives. So I hope that we can all come together and that's the ultimate goal. So
Yeah.
thank you, Heather.
Well, yeah, and you know, I kind of live in the far reaches of the county and I understand what the response times are. You know, I have a mother that has been hauled several times and sisters and I would not have a problem supporting an essential service tax. Again, like I said, if we could all come up with some kind of a equitable distribution on how that's going to work. You know, I don't think, you know, Pella should get 90% and well, I think it needs to be equitable somehow. And I don't know how to get there. I don't know what that formula would be. I don't know if it would be based on the amount of calls or I guess I don't know how to get there.
Well, and Steve, I guess since we're still talking about, maybe you can come up since we're still talking. So, but I'll just say this, if the county, our responsibility isn't to establish that.
No.
That's not because I'm not the expert on it either, as I just, yeah, that's not our job. Our job is to listen to the recommendation of that committee and say, we think this should go to the taxpayer for a vote.
Are we going to ask the taxpayers to help fund it?
Exactly. And we can make the case then as a board of supervisors that this has been fully fleshed out and agreed upon by the representatives of the group. And now taxpayer, vote on it. Do you want to pay more tax or not? It really is that simple. And my group that I'm in is to help me understand, is there another way of looking at the dollar equation? And if we can provide that and say, okay, here's another option. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing.
I
Okay.
always say no.
Yeah, you can always just say, we don't like it. So, okay, that's fine. That's fair. But it isn't fair. It isn't fair to say you can't say it. Because I can. We all can. Any taxpayer can. We have that right to do that. Mike.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I wasn't going to come up here and talk about this, but since you just mentioned it, if I understand you correctly, if they understand you correctly, if the EMS Alliance comes forward or Central Alliance comes forward and says, we have this plan, it doesn't necessarily have to go through the city administrations on both or all of the county. It just comes to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Well, it has
whole,
to go through the committee.
The EMS Essential Group was formed by the Board of Supervisors. So
Right.
from Jared can correct me on the legal process here, but that group isn't a function of the statute. It's a function of the board.
Right.
And the reason is, Mike, we haven't declared it essential yet.
And that's what I wanted to clarify, because I think that's part of the problem too, is what city administration's input is as well on this deal, behind the scenes, if you will.
Well, they're included in Heather's been in some of, I don't know if you've been in any of the EMS Essential meetings, but I know there's been city representation.
Right.
Mike Nardini's been there. So they've been involved in the discussions over
Right.
the last year. Yeah.
Back to your group that you talked about, first of all, thank you for owning the press release, because it was kind of misleading, if you will.
Well, I don't think I just misunderstood.
Yeah. My point on this, though, is I don't understand why Knoxville City was not invited. I don't understand why Bussey City is not invited. I don't understand why Pleasantville City. The reason being, they are city leaders of this community. They do lose money. And the simple fact is, when this group of people here have all their ambulances out, Indiana Township, Pella has come over.
Mhm.
They cover each other. They help each other. All those city administration leaders should be involved in your group that you're talking about.
Well, no,
Why?
because I wanted to have this group meet to help me understand
Sure.
the major drivers to EMS.
You don't think the input from Bussey and Pleasantville is a major driver?
We've already had that. We had Pleasantville in the group. We had the folks from Bussey in our original group. We had the folks from Melcher in the original group. They're already there, Mike.
Let's go back to the original.
No. I'm not here to be quizzed.
No,
I'm not
just
here to be
asking-
quizzed. I just told you. I just told you.
Sure. So my
I
statement
had,
on this.
I had Knoxville, I had Pella, I had the hospitals to help me understand the financial ramifications, because if Knoxville ambulance goes down,
Knoxville was not invited to your meeting, sir.
yes, they were. Yes, they were. They
When?
turned us down at first, and then they came back later and said they would come. So yes, they were. That's incorrect.
When I talked to the mayor, he didn't know about the meeting.
Don't care. I gave them a copy of everything that we presented to everybody else and said, you guys are welcome to join. They declined. And then they came back later and said they want to be a part of it.
My other statement, and I'll leave, you spent more than a year on that VA trying to put it together. I would give.
I
the
spent
same-
3 years putting it
Exactly, and I
together.
would give this group the same courtesy. After 1 year, you didn't come up with a resolution.
Mhm.
Give them the same courtesy, keep on working on it.
That's
Conti-
what,
and
that's what we're
continue with it
doing.
Without other input.
Why?
Because the group you just made, the group you just had, where did it get you?
I've had 2 meetings.
But that's my point, Mark.
No,
In
my,
in all respect, that's
it's not
my
a-
point.
it's
You
not a
left these
point.
guys out in the dark.
they've
did
been
not-
in the EMS essential meetings. They have representatives in those meetings. You're telling me I can't talk about something with other people. I reject that. Whole cloth.
I'm advised that you should include more.
No,
Then you're gonna have resistance, Mark.
then that's fine. You resist away.
I'm not talking myself.
But it,
I know.
you
how
can
these
write your
people work.
stuff, write your
I
stuff.
do know how these
It's
people work.
all fiction.
Really? That
Yes.
Made a pretty good living.
Good for you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Heather, did you want to say something?
I can't, I was just going to clarify in terms of the invite, if you want me to, when, we were asked to send a letter of support in regards to the grant that they were going to do. We did, it was clarified that our EMS would not be allowed to be a part of that conversation, so we respectively withdrew our letter of support for the grant. And then we were told that there was a meeting, and then we spoke with Mark and we asked to be a part of those meetings. I believe they did have one meeting before that, but we will be joining starting in March.
Yep, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. I'll second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye,
Johnner.
Aye.
thank you. We are adjourned.